for the first time storytelling broadcast is Abigail Casas. Now, I have to tell you before I introduce her because I think to me, like, this is a very exciting guest. So her dad, Mark Casas, worked for me like over 15 years ago. And he and I have stayed in touch. He's still a very good friend, even though we don't connect as often as I would, we would like to. But Abigail's been up to a lot of things and she's been going to many directions. So her father was like, "Hey, I know somebody you should talk to." So Abigail and I had a call, and she's an amazing young woman. And it's just so cool that she's the daughter of one of my great Marine Corps friend. So Abigail is a communication specialist involved in many various volunteer efforts and personal projects, all centered on word involvement. So reading, writing, and editing, and absolutely no word involvement, like gardening, theater production, and photography. So she's my kind of lady. She loves trying new things and exploring everything that life has to offer. But she does have a love, and that's a love for reading. So Abigail is here to share the story of her first time being a reading tutor. Welcome to the broadcast, Abigail.
Thank you. Yes, very accurate, appropriate introduction there. Covered all of it. Yeah.
It's so great to have you on. Okay, so let's get into this, and let's start with, where does your love for reading come from?
Okay. I would argue it's maybe always been there. My earliest memory of reading was to my father. It was a school assignment. I think I called him to try to narrow down the year. It was something like early 2000s. And I often forget my own age, but that was, some time ago. And I had this school textbook thing that had all these short stories in them. And I was practicing reading, practicing phonetics, practicing word recognition, all of those fun things. And I had to practice with someone reading out loud, and he was around, which, he was in the military at the time, so he wasn't always around. So I managed to grab him and we sat on the couch together. He put his arm around me and I was sounding out the words one by one. He was helping me out. And that is my earliest. Unfortunately, I don't remember the book. I don't remember the story. He has no recollection of this. But that is my earliest memory of reading at all. And there was just something of like the achievement of like when you're getting it right, you're getting it down, like your comprehension is there. And it's something that I can just do, right? There's no limit to what I can learn. There's no limit to what themes I can pick up. And it's something that's so just independent that I can carry with me, forever, that nobody can really take from me. And that's one of those skills that I'm just really proud of. So
Yeah.
that's blossomed into a love.
Well, it's such a beautiful memory because it was with your dad, and yes, fortunately, military kids know their parents are in and out, and it's not because they don't want to be there, but deployments and long hours, and so that moment was shared with him, and I can understand why what sticks out is the memory of being with him, and then the memory of grasping that reading was going to be something that was going to allow you to continue to learn. I remember my sixth grade science teacher, which is weird because he was a science teacher, but he said, I remember him saying this, at first you learn to read and then you read to learn. And that always stayed with me. And what was significant at the time was because I had just moved from Canada to the US, I was just learning how to read in English. So for me, it was, I was an older child, but I was just learning how to read in that language. So when he said that, I was like, okay, right now I'm learning how to read in English, but eventually that will allow me to continue to learn. So that's
It's
a
a whole world.
beautiful realization that you had there with your dad. Now, what type of things were you reading as a kid that further your love for reading, and do you have a favorite book that comes to mind?
So earlier days, I know there was a lot of, I think, Magic Treehouse. I think that was like a series I was very into. A series of Unfortunate Events kind of followed that. And I'm sure there are lots of other kind of one-off novels, short story sort of things I was reading. I'm sure they're laying around in someone, mom's house, dad's house somewhere. I don't think that they would have gotten rid of those books. And I love that of the people I've told that I'm going to be on this podcast, that this seems to be a cherished thing for a lot of people, and that nobody really remembers the first book, but they take it as far back as they can, and they try to, oh yeah, I was reading this in 6th grade, and I snuck it under my desk while the teacher was teaching. And somebody has some story, whether it's positive or maybe it's negative. I read my first literature book, and it was Catcher in the Rye, and it was total trash, and it threw me off literature for years. And just, yeah, people have that story in them, and I think it's great to hear. But yeah, so that's there's a couple of smaller books there that I was reading when I was younger. A favorite book, I've shockingly not been, I have a lot of favorites. I have favorite films, I have favorite TV shows, I have favorite people, but a favorite book has been hard because there's so many. It's exhausting trying to keep up with all of the fiction, all of the nonfiction, all of the news, all of the text that people come across in their day-to-day lives. It's just so much.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's hard to narrow down there.
There's definitely a lot of content out there, and you're right. I mean, one of the first time story prompt that I had is, the first book that impacted your life, but it is one of those where you have to go back and try and go through the library of all the books that you've read. And when I made the move here, I found all my Nancy Drew
Yes.
books. And I in 8th grade, my first award was the Bookworm Award, because
Oh,
yeah, I was just reading. I love to read, so I definitely share that with you. So now let's get into the story. Let's get into your story of becoming a tutor for the first time, helping somebody to read. So when was it? Who was it for, and what has that experience been like for you?
gotcha. All right, so picture it. It is December. We are pre-quarantine. And my life setting is that I live in this one bedroom. It is me and my lovely senior dog, Daisy. So I get regular walks. It's me walking her, it's her walking me. And I was getting, let's see, the isolation, I guess, was kind of creeping in. I consider myself more introverted. Whether that lends itself to the reading, what came first, the chicken or the egg, that's up for debate. But yeah, I was just doing, a lot of reading, some writing, just kind of keeping to myself at home. And then that doesn't always bode well for my mental health. Sometimes I do want to go out there and maybe have more social interactions, but my friends are pretty scattered. My family's pretty scattered. I think the closest relative is a brother who lives like 15 minutes away, and I don't have a car. So it was just one of those, like, man, there's got to be things out and about that I can do. Be an active member in the community. That looks good on a resume. That looks good, on a date with a cute guy. I don't just stay in all day. Like I go out and experience things in the world. So I think a couple of things happened simultaneously. I volunteered with a local small theater group, and they were super personable and friendly. The gardening might have picked up around then too. Again, I live in an apartment, so it was kind of nice to be able to go out to, there's 2 museums in Old Town Alexandria, I live in Alexandria, and they have historic kind of gardens that they maintain and clean up, every other weekend. So that was nice when they were doing that, again, pre-pandemic. And then there is an elementary school that is literally, it's a 2-minute walk. It's right behind me, and I would see it, walking the dog every day. I'd see the kids come out. I'd see the school buses hustling in, parents at drop off. And I was just like, it's right there. I'm sure there is something there I can do. It's just right there. There's no excuse. Even if I'm the laziest I can be on a particular day, that's just literally right there. So I went to their website, and they were taking tutors. I think it was just blanket tutors. They didn't specify the grade. They didn't specify the subject. And I was like, well, I don't really do the math stuff. I have a degree in English. I have a job that I do editing in English. So it'd be really great if it was something in that field, but hopefully they're kids. I can probably wing it either way. and reached out to them, had a little back and forth, got my security background stuff done, and then met the lovely coordinator, Pat, who's now retired, and I miss her dearly, but she's hanging out with her grandkids. And she just threw me right in there, took me to the back closet of the classroom, said, here's where all this stuff is, pulled out a couple of folders and was like, here's what we do with them. And I was like, what am I teaching though? And who am I teaching it to? And she's like, oh, we'll send you an email, but it's reading comprehension. You're going to be, sounding out letters. You're going to be trying to see if they can grasp the entire word. Eventually you'll get on to full sentences, but that comes later. I joined in the middle of the year. It was somewhere around December time. I remember I have like this beige coat that I always wear, and that was like pretty worn in, has lots of neat pockets for all the things they were giving me. And that was it. I think the day she took me to that back closet and showed me where everything was, I was like tutoring the next day, and I felt so unprepared.
Okay. I was gonna say, were you excited? Were you nervous? Were you
so nervous, unprepared?
Yeah. Are you a kid person?
Exactly. Like, I don't know. Like, what grade is it? Like, am I gonna, it's because it's different, right? If I'm dealing with a fifth grader who knows I'm some like semi quasi adult and they're gonna give me some sass, or if it's gonna be some wide-eyed first grader who's just like excited to read, I try to go through both scenarios in my head. What if I have someone who's really obstinate and they hate reading? What if I have someone who's obsessed and they love reading? I imagine it's a kid, so they're probably high energy. So that's just remaining calm there. Previous to this, I don't think I've had a lot of interaction with children. I'm the youngest in the family, so like I was the child for the longest time, arguably still the child, always repping the starving college student motif whenever I head back to one of the various homes I head back to. So I get lots of leftovers and sometimes a $20 bill in the Christmas stocking, and that's okay. I'll take it. So I eventually read the email more carefully, took diligent notes, got two. Let's see if I remember the first set of kids that I had it was a pair of two. I tutored them one at a time for 30-minute sessions. I believe it was a boy and a girl, and they were in kindergarten. And then got the teachers' names down, figured out where their rooms were, and then once you sign in through the school process, which was also a whole new thing. Like, I remember when I was in the middle school, very different from now with everything that happens in the world. So you have to be buzzed in, you have to be, signed in, you have to be stickered in, you have to be, nodded in, you have to shake all the hands, see all the people, come off as not a threat. And that's just fine. I'm here for that. Navigate the different alleyways and maze that is the school now, which is, again, probably for safety reasons. And then you take the kids out of the class, and there's a weird moment where, if it's iPad day, you get some looks about, I don't want you here right now. But if it's some other, they're doing a worksheet that they'd rather not be doing, they're pretty excited to see you. And then you would go out into a hallway. Sometimes they had a setup for you. Sometimes you had to go back in the closet, find a table and a chair. And then, you just sat them down, asked them how they're doing. The way that they structured it in this program is that you would have an early kind of 10-minute, 10-minute or so, like drawing time to just kind of talk with them, get to know them. How was their weekend? How was their week? How was their day? And kindergarten. So the grasp of a day was kind of eluding them. Sometimes I'd get a really real bright one who would know, like my day, Wednesday, the 18th of 2019 was good. And I was like, okay, why was it good? And that was kind of the extent of.
So it was always a different group of kids, different kids. It wasn't like a steady, you're going to work with this person on a constant basis.
It was through the year. Okay. So I had these two for that year, and then I think the next year I had a different set of two. Okay. I had two girls, and then I think that is when the quarantine happened. Would have been this past year. So unfortunately, I didn't get to finish the year with them. They were making good progress, so I trust that they're going to be okay when whatever happens next.
So it's now. They're not sitting on your lap, obviously, but it's back to what it was like for you, your first time that you remember, and teaching them. So they're having to pronounce word, and is that what it's like? And what is it feel like when they get it, when they're struggling, like what are you what do you go through as you're trying to teach?
Well, so you have that drawing portion, which is it was fun. It was a lot of seeing like how creative they can be and how like uniquely creative. Like I remember the boy that I taught would draw like a lot of pirate ships and like houses. And then the girl would draw a lot of princesses and rainbows and cookies. And I was like, okay, that's pretty stereotyped. And then I think the next set of girls that I got, one of them, yeah, was just like really into drawing houses. And I was like, is this your house? She, no, it's grandma's house. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's like getting to know them, I would get excited because there's no way to do that wrong. You're just letting them do them. And then you move into the actual learning portion and we would focus on words first. So there would be some, activity in a folder about pronouncing sounds or what does this word mean, matching the word to the picture. And then it's just a lot of cheerleading. It's a lot of like, you've got this, like take a deep breath. I know it's frustrating, but you can do it. And then they would do it. You can see the progress pretty gradually. You have, sometimes I would question myself, like how much of an impact am I having? And then I could see it by the end of the year that they're going to be A-okay. And it was good to imagine that I had an impact. The teachers did a lot, but I was there as a supportive role. And then at the very end of the session, they would read. We would try our best to make it through a book. And there was one girl, I don't remember if she was in my first set or second set, the different years, but she would read 10 Apples on Top. And she read through the book completely towards the just before the end of the year. She immediately got up, ran into the classroom and told her teacher, I can read this book. And I was like, bye. And then the teacher came back out and she was like, she's so excited. I was like, I hear her. This is great. I'm so happy. And then that confidence kind of carried over in a toxic way in that, if she started stumbling over words in other books, she would just, throw that book aside and be like, I want to read the book I can read. I was like, well, no, there's more.
There's
So
more than one book, lots
there's
of
more than
words.
that. Yeah, there's not, you're not done. Like the learning process continues.
Uh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So now are you still doing some tutoring via Zoom? Or is
Yes.
that's gotta be, how was that transition?
It's in a way good. It's, like the times are more flexible. You're able to kind of coordinate that with the parent. I have just one kid now. I tutor twice a week, a boy. And again, slowly getting to know him has been really great. He likes a lot of spooky stuff. I like a lot of spooky stuff. I wasn't expecting that from a first grader. Like his favorite film is Chucky. I was like, are you allowed to watch Chucky? I'm confused. He whipped out a Chucky doll that he owns. And I was like, wow, this is serious. And, if we come across a story that has like a spookier kind of theme, we'll both just be like, we really liked that. Yeah, we should read that again later. Unfortunately, I think the audio quality has been something that's, if he's struggling to say the word, he's struggling with something the other day specific, and he just, like the sounds got jumbled, and I try to pronounce it slower, I try to get closer to the mic, I try to get him to pronounce it slower, and finally we were kind of getting there, but I don't know how much of that's going to stick. I don't know how much of that he'll remember, mouth sounds and mouth feels and things like that. And then obviously I have not really activities to show him or to like guide him through or to like write alongside him to show, how to write the letters and things like that. It's a lot of, I have an ebook version of the physical book that he has. And if he's struggling with a word, he can show me on the screen or he can spell it and I'll tell him what it is. But that's kind of the extent of the interaction we're able to have. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's different, but plus and minuses, and yeah, because you can't be there and put your finger on it, and
Yeah. I'm told that's a huge, like psychologically, that's a huge thing. If there's a finger on a page and you're showing them, I don't know if it makes them feel good or if it helps them focus or something, but I can't do that.
Well, it's good that still progressing, not quitting though, still.
It's something, absolutely.
Working with it, and I guess I don't know if sharing the screen and using the mouse. It's not a finger, but it's still kind of tying the visual with the audio of it, and
absolutely.
Well, this is so neat that you started and you're still engaged with it, and it's fulfilling and get to make a difference and share your love of reading.
Yeah, because I don't think I went through that. I don't recall going through that. Cause so kind of like my earliest memory, I was reading to my father and we were I don't think it was similar to like what I do with them. Cause it's almost like supplemental learning is what I do as a tutor. So it's, the kids that are selected for this program are in like a middle ground in that, they're not going to, they might not figure it out on their own, but they're not so terrible that, maybe we need to find a speech pathologist. Maybe they need to be in a rigorous, program to kind of get them up to speed with the grade level. It's like a nice sweet spot of, just a little extra help, a little extra guidance on pronunciation and recognition and things like that. I don't remember if that was even a thing when I was learning how to read. And if it was, I wasn't in that particular program for whatever reason, whether it existed or I just didn't qualify for it. So it's been fascinating to see that this exists, to see that, there's specific attention you can give to these are the sounds and these are the combinations and just all of that, the science behind it almost of how you break things down and focus in on them. So that way, when you're older and you don't think about these things and they all just come to you, the building blocks are already there. And I did not know
Yeah.
that these were even building blocks that you could assemble. So that's been really cool.
That is interesting. If I sometimes I'll go, you have like how to pronounce something if a word is, and then what's it called? The way that it's written. I to me, like it doesn't. If I couldn't hit the play, I still wouldn't be able to
Oh,
pronounce
like
the
the
word.
phonetics with the upside down
The
E,
way
and you're
that
like,
I'm like, I didn't learn this. I don't know what this means. Just like,
exactly,
you're
yes.
using a method that I never learned to try and get me to do this, and that's not going to work. And you're right. As an adult, I'm not unless being in your shoes where you learn it to teach it. No, I just tell me what it is, and I'll do the old-fashioned way of how we learn. Like same thing. I can't remember how I learned to read, be it in French or, and I
Yeah.
was much older in English. It was more like here's the word and you need to say it, which is probably is probably why. Like
Yeah.
it took me a couple decades to be able to say salmon without saying salmon, and I still certain words I still pronounce wrong or they trip me
Well,
up.
that's a whole nother like field, something that I try to keep in check. And it's almost like too much for, first grader or fifth grader or kindergartner to really be concerned with. But I try to inch that in. Like if you say salmon or if you say salmon, like I understand you're talking about the fish product. And that's really, as a technical communicator in my job, that's what matters. Are you conveying the message clearly, efficiently, and it's getting across appropriately? Like that's what matters. It doesn't matter if you say McLean or McLean. Maybe you're following how it's spelled, you're following how it makes sense to you. You're not surrounded by people who say it the correct way. So like you're figuring it out the best way that you can. And that's not right or wrong. You might hear it in a different way. Maybe I have an accent that I don't recognize. And that's something, I try to do some work as a voiceover actor. And that's something that they'll flag like, oh, why are you pronouncing it this way? Like, the general consensus would be this way. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. Like who should know that? There's not some guidebook somewhere. So it's tough. And I try to flag that for them, but that's just something you get with
Yeah, that's the
experience.
extra. Yeah, so but that's it's a it's an interesting thing to be engaged in helping to tutor and teach, and especially because that's your world, right? Words are your world, and reading, and I just love it. It's fabulous, and I'm not surprised your father is so well spoken.
Yes, he
Like
is,
every time it's
yes.
just like I'll just listen and speak and be fascinated with the way that he strings his words together, his expression and his thoughts and his points of views. It's entertainment in of itself.
Oh, sure, yeah. He's worked very hard at that charisma, that confidence, that almost marketability of he knows what he's saying, he knows why he's saying it. He's structuring this way for a specific reason, and he is very good at that. Yes.
Yeah, and so he always amuses me as he does that, and I'm like, I don't. Obviously, being a host, I am working on continuously improving that. But I
Yeah.
know he would step in and it would be like, it's just because it's in his nature. Prior to doing this, I express myself through writing, not through the spoken word. So
Mhm.
it's been a transition of doing that where I will use bigger words that I
Yeah.
know I don't have to pronounce when I write them. This is when I
Yes.
have to speak them. So great
Yes.
job helping kids not ending up being, an adult like me.
Oh, I mean, I see them for the year. Where they go after that,
I
I can only
know.
hope it
Yeah.
all comes together.
It usually always somehow does. That is the beauty of learning, is you never know when it's really going to pay off.
Yeah.
It could be down the road. So, all right. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, before we get to the first time lightning round, is there a way you want to share with people to get in touch with you?
Um, oh boy, get in touch with me. I have social media handles. That would maybe be a good way. I don't know
Yeah.
if I remember my usernames. I like tricked myself. It's Abby, but they're spelled a certain way, and they're all a little bit different. And
Can probably straight go to LinkedIn. Seems
oh,
you're most engaged there.
yes, LinkedIn is probably a good professional place to also connect with me, and that would just be my first and last name. And there's not too many Abigail Casas on there, so that's a
All
good
right,
yes.
perfect. All right, so it is time for the first time lightning round. So the way it works is I'm going to ask Abigail 10 different first time options. If it's something that she's done before, she will say up. So it's similar that to if she was on the app. If it's something she's never done, not interested, we go left. And it's something she's never done, would like to do, we go right, and it gets added to the list. Ready?
Ready?
Okay. Attend a Thanksgiving parade.
Uh, left.
Left. Not
Yeah.
into Thanksgiving or not into parades?
Not into parades. I like Thanksgiving at home with food, especially, where we're at now. And I'm not going to lie, even before then, crowds of people. I know it's cold. Those people seem so sad in that parade. No, thank you.
No, right. That's a left. Own a fish tank.
Up.
Uh, I've had one of those before.
Sure.
Just a go fish or an actual like big fish tank?
That's a great question. I don't think it was a beta fish. It was one of those before we started getting family dogs. We started out with fish, and it wasn't necessarily my fish. I might have had a fish in the larger family tank, and it was a fun experience when the fish died and sunk. And we all just watched this dead fish for a week, thinking like, if it was dead, it would float. And then it just got paler and didn't move, and we just figured out that they don't always float.
All right. Go to a 3D museum.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Add that to the list. Get a tattoo.
Ooh, so my mom would say no, but it's come up, especially, I have a dog, so I've seen a lot of cute remembrance tattoos, things of that nature. Whether it needs to be a tattooed would be where my mom would argue. It could be a nice poster, it could be a nice portrait, it could be lots of other things and ways to remember her. So I lean towards a left, a no. Yeah.
Okay. Drive across Canada.
Am I driving?
You don't have to be the one driving, but you're
Okay,
taking
good.
the trip across Canada.
There's so many. I'm one of those, I forget what the personality type is, but like I tend to need a lot of information for these things. So like, am I driving? Who is driving? Who else is in the car? How long is this going to take? How much time do I have? Do I have to get back to work? Like, have we mapped out the whole trip? Is it we chose the car because it's the cheaper option? Was flight not available? I cycle through all these, but in general, in the way that you phrased it, I do want to go to Canada. I assume there's lots of Canada to see. And if I went with the right person, a road trip could be great. So I'd go up on that.
Right.
Or no, the
Right.
right.
Up. Yeah. Up as you've done it. We go right. All
Right.
right. Okay. Do needlework.
Up. I think I've done some sewing things, and I recently completed a cross stitch of DC cherry blossoms that was part
Oh.
of a Maker's Mile kit provided by Old Town Alexandria. And it was frustrating how you tie the knots in the back. I don't get it still, but if you look at the front, it's very pretty.
Yeah, just don't go the other side.
Just hide that back part. It's okay.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Go watch a can show.
I think that's technically I would go right. There was flamenco dancer at my father's wedding in Spain. It's not quite can dancing, but it was a live event of cultural value. It was something I would always be down for.
Yeah, well, there's nothing like actually being at Moulin Rouge and seeing the can dance.
Yes, I'd be up for that.
We'll put it right. Or what is it in New York in the mm, I can visualize it. I don't know what it's called, but in New York where they have the can dancers. Is
Okay.
it off? Is it on Broadway or it's a big? Anyways, can't think of it. But all right, if your dad listens to this, he's gonna know on top of his head. He'll be like, oh,
Absolutely. Reach out to
those
you. Direct
two.
message.
Yeah. What's wrong with the two of you? Okay. Sponsor a child.
Oh, not 100% sure everything that would entail. That is something I've thought about. I don't know if it comes in hand kind of with the tutoring or just, I spend more time with people who are concerned with, global affairs. They're concerned with the state of things in the world, and having an impact like that having a positive impact like that on the youth, I feel like would be good. I do have large issue with throwing money at things. I've gotten talks from economists on how that's not great. So I don't know if sponsoring was purely financial, I don't think I could get behind it. But if there was more involvement on their education, where they're at and how they're doing, absolutely, I'd get behind that.
So I highly recommend it. I sponsored 2 Child with Compassion International, and I will admit I'm a crappy sponsor in that, like, they welcome you, engage them. So writing them letters as often as possible,
Gotcha.
and they write you letters and they tell you what's happening. And one of the first child is, she's now a teenager, and I suck at communicating with children, to include my nieces and nephews. So
No.
they're getting my money. They're not
Mhm.
getting, and I do feel horrible, but I figure it's better to get my money than get nothing. And every so often I'll be like, I really need to write them a letter. I just don't know what to say.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is. But if it is a great engagement, and it's great to get their letters and they'll draw pictures. And so it's a great
Okay.
program.
Okay
Yeah.
then. To the
Yeah.
right then. Yeah.
To the right it goes. Okay. Take Pilates.
Up.
Done that
Yeah,
before?
I've done Pilates, yoga, barre, hot yoga, all of that kind of. There was a phase where I would do the exercising, but do it slowly, and it was fantastic. And I don't know what happened, but I don't have the patience for it anymore. And it kills me because that's one of the peak quarantine things. It's just an app on your phone. I have a yoga mat. It could be great. But I just can't hold that position for, you want me to hold it for a full minute? Oh, I would rather just put on some running shoes, grab, my playlist, and just active movement to make the time go by.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's a great way to work on your patience.
It's so great. It's great for your mental health. It's great for your muscle. Even if you're not building muscle, it's good for your lungs. It's so
Yeah.
great. I'll work on it.
I feel like I just gave you a guilt trip. Okay, final one. Eat Vietnamese cuisine.
Probably an up. I am of Asian descent. I am Japanese, so I've come across a lot of multicultural food. Which food falls into which specific region
So
sometimes eludes me.
probably for Vietnamese, it's like pho, like the different well, it's called pho. I would have to look it up but it's different
Alpha.
soups. And yeah, it's a lot of they have a lot of great like soup type dish in for Vietnamese
So I
food.
have had pho. I've had pho maybe twice because I wasn't a super fan of it the first time. And then whoever convinced me the second time was like, oh, you didn't have pho with me. Like, it'll be a different experience. And was still not, I'd rather have ramen is usually my rebuttal now when people are like, let's go out and get pho. I'd rather have ramen.
Yeah. Well, you've had it, so it is
Yes.
an up. All right.
Yes.
So the final question is, how have you been making the best out of the current situation with the pandemic?
Well, that's a tougher one to answer now because we're at that weird space of like, we're definitely still in this, but are we? Because we're starting to creep out of the woodwork. Things are starting to reopen, different phasing and different precautions. So it's tough, not even from a quarantine sense, but just making sense of all of that. You know, when do I go into work? When am I working remotely? When is my virtual volunteering stuff? There's some things that are opening, but you have to wear a mask. You don't have to wear a mask. There won't be a lot of people. But in general, I have good friends who, you know, will stand 6 feet apart or will, you know, will boast that we can get sick together. Those people have remained at a distance, but they're there. They're remaining upbeat. I have a healthy family. That's always something to, no matter how down I get, you know, nobody has ended up in the hospital from pre-existing conditions or COVID related. So that is always something I'm deeply grateful for. I have a roof over my head, food in my fridge, and bills that are still getting paid. So there's really nothing externally stressful. It's all internally, you know, this is a very different life to be living. And I don't want to say this is the new normal because things will continue to adapt and change. And I look forward to that. I recently went on the speech with someone who they're signing up for classes for a master's degree. And they said, oh, when the classes start, you know, everything will fall into line, the routines will pick back up and everything will be great. And I was like, that's a trap. You can't wait for a thing to happen, for everything to come back together. This is just the now. And slowly things will adapt and they will continue to adapt and they will continue to change. And whether it's pandemic related or just, you know, the greater world, adaptability is just a part of it. I'm excited to see the positive, innovative way that things choose to adapt, and I hope it's great.
All right. Well, it's a good outlook to have. And yeah, you can't stop. You got to keep it's happening. You keep adapting, things around you adapt, and that is a key word to adaptability and change. Just embrace change. Those who are quick at embracing and moving with the times are going to thrive, and they have thrived during this time, and they're going to continue to do that. So if it's not in your nature, all you have to do is work on it, and our natures can be changed. It's a slow progress, but they can absolutely be changed, improved, tweaked, and
Yes.
it's about what type of mindset that you want to have. So there's no point in going against the flow.
Yes, and it's scary. It's scary to be pushed in that position when you're not ready. But yeah, that's all you can do is take a day at a time. You know, hold on to the people that you love dear, and you know, it's going to be okay. Unless it's not going to be okay, in which case it'll probably still kind of be okay because there'll be
Yeah.
another day.
All right. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me on this Friday morning for me, noon for you out there on the East Coast in Virginia. And been great getting to know you even more. And uh, again, it's so awesome
I appreciate
because
you bringing
you're
me
my
on.
daughter.
Yes, you're doing
Yeah.
so many things and it's so cool to see what you're doing. I love that you are doing this. This is your passion project. It is growing. It is already so grown. It is amazing. You talk to so many fascinating, interesting people, and I am part of that collection now, and I'm
Yep.
so happy. Thank you so much, Anne.
All right. We got to talk your dad into coming on.
I tried. I tried. We'll just keep subliminally messaging him and just eventually we'll get him.
Yeah. We'll get through to him after he watches this. And
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
it would be a riot. Me and the man's a riot. All right.
For
Well,
sure.
thank you, Abigail. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have an
Thank
amazing
you. You
weekend.
too. Thank you. You too. Stay safe. Stay good.